Hi everybody, welcome to the Top 2 Inches of Sport podcast with me, Anthony Sheriff. This is a podcast about something that's always fascinated me, the mindset required to succeed in elite level sport. On this podcast, I'm going to talk to people who I really look up to in the world of sport and try to find out how they deal with the highs and lows that come with consistently striving for success in the unforgiving environment of elite sport. This week, I spoke to Gaelic football legend Cora Staunton. Widely regarded as the greatest ladies Gaelic footballer of all time, Cora has won 4 All-Ireland titles with Mayo, 6 All-Ireland club titles with Carnacon, and she has also won 11 All-Star awards. From speaking to Cora, it's impossible not to be impressed by her drive, commitment and relentless will to win, and these are qualities that have never left her since she began her senior career at only 13 years of age. She played Gaelic football at the top level for over 2 decades before moving to Australia to play Australian rules football. She talks about her mindset to competition and how different moments throughout her career have helped shape her journey to the top. It was great to speak to an athlete at this level about the mental side of the game, and I hope you enjoyed as well. So here's this week's episode of the Top 2 Inches of Sport with a true superstar of Irish sport, Cora Staunton. Right, thanks a million, Cora, for coming on and talking to me today, and for also showing the patience and perseverance to connect to the Wi-Fi there in the storm. I think people listening won't realise the struggles, so thanks very much.
No bother at all. I'm sorry. It's taken an extra couple of hours, yes, but Storm, I think Ellen has done the Wi-Fi in today down in Mayo, so thankfully it's back up and running again.
Yeah, so basically what we'll do today is we'll talk about different moments throughout your career and like maybe the more famous moments, but just to start off, from reading your book, one thing that really jumps out is just your attitude towards competition. Like you come across like a real, almost obsessed with winning. There was something almost kind of Roy Keane-esque about reading it. So is that like an attitude that maybe you have developed down the years, or is that something you think maybe even as a child you had over other like children even in the playground? Is it something you just naturally have?
Yeah, I think it was something, obviously it develops over time, but it's certainly something I think when I was growing up and when I was very young that I was naturally competitive and had this kind of drive to win. And I suppose to try and remember back, where I could remember back as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, being even in the garden playing a soccer match with my brothers or, the few neighbours. We used to have, competitive enough soccer matches either in our garden or the neighbour's garden. And you'd always certainly want to win, and, you'd be really disappointed or even, more than that if you didn't win. So I do remember, and I remember being in national school as well, where we'd always have competitions, whether it be, we used to have a community centre beside our school, so we'd play a lot of indoor soccer, and we'd play different leagues, whether it was handball, racquetball, so we always had competitions. So you'd always be striving to be at the top of whether it's the soccer competition or the racquetball or handball, whatever it was. So even now, while you get older, you probably, not that you just, you realise how competitive you are. And, even now, if you're doing something, whether it's, before a game over in Australia, we're playing a bit of table tennis or having a quiz or whatever, you're just naturally competitive and want to do well. So I think it's innately in you, and it's probably as you play more sport and involved in sport, it probably comes out more in you.
Yeah, but it obviously paid off very young for you anyway, because you made I find this crazy, you made your Mayo senior debut when you were 13. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's looking back now, it's probably crazy. Obviously, that can't happen now. Girls have to be out of the age group of under 16, so that have to be at least 16, if not 17, when you make your senior debut. But obviously, that back when I started, that wasn't the case. It could be any age. So
what was that like physically? Like was that very, very tough?
Like I was obviously the youngest, but there was girls that were like 15, 16. And physically, I suppose, like ladies football, while there'll be like women that'll be developed and very strong in that. I think because back then maybe the skill level wasn't as high. I was lucky, I was very skillful, I was quick. So that probably stood to me, and as I developed when I probably had a growth spurt when I was about 16, I developed and got physically stronger. But I think you wouldn't be able to manage it in the male space. You're certainly able to manage it in the female space, because my skills were probably a lot quicker or faster, and that was because I had been playing a lot of football with the boys when I was growing up. So my skills were probably just a little bit sharper than the girls I was playing with at the time. So it was crazy when you look back at it, but I never felt in any way oh God, I'm worried here for myself or anything like that, because there was girls, as I said, as young as 15 and 16 playing.
Yeah, but even if you weren't feeling that at the time, do you think mentally it actually stood to you later on? Say when you're in your 20s, like if you've gone through those experiences and those challenges as a 13-year-old, basically still a child, surely like that must have stood to you mentally, knowing that you can go through it definitely then as an adult.
Yeah, I think it does. I think there's certainly there's times in your life, and probably more so like games and certain moments in your life where things like that stand to you, for sure. Like from my point of view, I think the biggest thing that probably stood for me as a 13-year-old going in was, I had been involved in a number of teams with my club, and I had obviously been involved with community games in Mosney in an All-Ireland final that we lost. We won an under-14 Féile All-Ireland with our club the year after Mosney. So that was when I was a 12-year-old. So we were competing at quite a high level at a very young age. Yeah. So I think I was used to that from a young age. And, I'd been in a couple of different competitions in school. I was in a handball All-Ireland as well when I think I was maybe 10 or 11. Yeah. So you always had that high-level competition. So I think that probably stood to me. And I think then because I made my debut at 13 and probably started to make a name for myself because, I was racking up quite high scores in senior matches as a 13-year-old. I think instantly I put pressure on myself because everyone was looking at the scores that you were racking up. So I ended up having to deal with these pressure situations when I was very young. And they just become the norm. That's what was normal for me, and it's probably normal for me right throughout my football career. Even to this day, I don't expect anything less, either I'm double marked or I'm expected to put up high scores, so there's a level of expectation was put on me quite young. And obviously I had to learn how to deal with that from a very young age. Most people don't have to learn how to deal with that till probably maybe their late teens, early 20s, where I probably had to do it quite a few years younger.
Yeah. So you're saying like you were playing at a high level, senior football when you're 13. I'm assuming you're playing school football, club football. So, and like you said, you would have had that pressure on you as the star player for like at such a young age, and like your schedule, I'm sure, was so busy, playing probably every day. At that age, obviously, you could imagine how a teenager could burn out physically. Was there ever a mental burnout? Did you ever just almost, you're playing so much football under so much pressure? Was there ever a risk of you just going, oh, I've had enough?
There was probably a stage, but I don't know, like looking back, it's very hard to know. There probably was stages in my career where there was a physical or a mental burnout more than a physical burnout. But, I probably associate that the biggest time that I felt that I had a mental burnout was around the time I lost my mother. So I'd have been 16 at the time when I lost my mother. So I kind of fell out of love with sport at the time. But maybe that could have been, a mental burnout because of what happened, but also could have been a mental burnout because I'd been playing, quite a lot of sport at that stage. I'd been, playing under 14, under 16, minor, senior with both club and county. I was doing playing a junior and senior in school, and then I was, playing a little bit of basketball and soccer on top of it. So I was probably being dragged from here, there, and everywhere. And then obviously between me being, 13 and 16, my mother would have been 6. So that was probably mentally draining as well, even though, look, I didn't realise at the time, but looking back now, it was probably a combination of everything, of what was going on at home and obviously playing so much sport and then I suppose so much being expected of you that, you're needed to perform every day you went out, no matter what the team was. The level of expectation at an under 14 county match was the same as a senior county match. Which was obviously difficult to deal with. So I suppose that was probably, looking back, probably one stage in my career. I was certainly, mentally exhausted. I don't know if it's burned out is the word, but I wasn't mentally in a very good place. Yeah.
And obviously you mentioned there about your mum sadly passing away, but was there a point where football came back to as almost a helping hand for you? Like, was it a case of, because sometimes Irish people, they aren't very good maybe speaking about their feelings. So when you went back and focused again on the football, did it almost help the grieving process, if you like, because you're with your friends? Like, obviously you've grown up with these girls, playing with them every day, so you're just down the field with them. You might not be speaking about your mum, but just the fact that they're there, it's a source of comfort and support.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, like after my mom passed away, it was a couple of months I didn't probably play sports. I was lucky I had a lot of, good friends and coaches that would, come to the house and nag me to come to the training or the match or whatever it may be. And, eventually I gave in and I used to go, but I wouldn't train. I just go and watch. And eventually then, obviously, I got the love for the game back again. And I decided, obviously, okay, I'll go back training and I'll play the game. And definitely at the time, again, you wouldn't realise it's only years later when you kind of sit and think, yeah, definitely that period of probably 6 months after my mother died, that next kind of 6 months to a year, yeah, football helped me hugely, because obviously that time we went on our first run with Mayo and we won our first All-Ireland just a year after my mother passed away. So that was obviously huge. And, there was the whole build-up for that year. We're doing very well. So, just been training, and I think sometimes you're quite angry and you don't realise that you have a lot of anger in you with everything that has gone on. I think football was always for me a source of letting that anger out, and also just 2 hours away from having to think too much about anything else and just going to football and talking to people. And you didn't normally had time to think about everything else, but when you're at football you just thought about football and hung out with people that that you were friendly with, and people always looked after you and had your, you'd always not a shoulder to cry on, but you'd always someone to talk to, and the girls at the time knew exactly what was happening. So they, especially the older ones, were a great source of help to me, again, even though at the time I didn't realise it. So yeah, definitely for the next year, not only me but my family, football kind of helped them deal with it, because we went on quite a long journey with Mayo over the next 5 or 6 years, winning obviously 4 out of 5 All-Irelands.
Yeah. And is it like, would you have always held your mother close maybe on match day? Would you be the type to maybe even pray to your mum even before a game?
Yeah, definitely. And during a game and when things were tight, you'd be having words, yeah. So yeah, definitely I would, yeah. And, I'd obviously, even now, mom's, over 20 years dead at this stage, I'd still visit the grave before match. And yeah, certainly when things are tight and you're looking for, a bit of divine intervention, yeah, you'd certainly have a couple of chats while you're on the pitch. But I'd always would have used her, in my early days after she died, and even now, as a great source of kind of someone to talk to, maybe when things aren't going great.
That's brilliant. That's a great attitude to have. I want to ask you now just about the sports psychology situation in Mayo. So obviously you were 2 decades plus really playing for the Mayo senior team. So what was the relationship with sports psychology? Did you have a sports psychologist? Did you ever have anyone going in and speaking to you, or was there just no relationship?
Yeah, well, early days there probably wasn't. When I was younger, when we were winning our All-Irelands, from 17 to the kind of that 22, 23 age group, sports psychology for us wasn't big. And, I don't remember anyone really coming in and talking to us or any of that. It was probably later in my career when I was kind of reaching late 20s, maybe going into my 30s, yeah, certainly sports psychology became big, and we would have someone attached to the team with different people over a number of years that have come in. We'd never have them there on a constant basis. They might come in to talk to us 2 or 3 times in the year and do different things with us, different workshops. So that was the main, thing I had with sports psychology. And then obviously in Australia, when I went over there, it was probably came a little bit bigger, because we would have a full-time sports psychologist on hand if needed, and would work with the team a lot more than I would have kind of in the Gaelic sense. So, it was more through my Gaelic career. It was very ad hoc. Some years we'd have one, and it was that we might see them 2 or 3 times a year, and if you needed them, some girls use them more than others. As I said, in Australia, it was that they're there full-time, and you can use them whenever they want, and obviously we had them from a team point of view as well.
Yeah. Did you ever give much consideration to perhaps working with one just individually, even outside of the Mayo, just like sourcing one externally? Because obviously every player's dealing with pressures, but like you've said before, an awful lot is expected of you. So in some ways you're dealing with greater pressures. So were you ever tempted to seek one out yourself?
No, it's funny. No, I think I was lucky enough. I'm the type of person. I kind of surround myself with people I trust, and I have a very close knit unit of friends, and that was like inside the football space that I'd be very friendly with and have been very friendly with over my time playing with Mayo and even now with Carnacon. I'd surround myself with people I trust, and that might be only 4 or 5 players or whatever it is, or 4 or 5 people. And then particularly I would have had and still have a best friend that played football with me up to 2017, and she retired then. But that I would have probably offloaded a lot on her rather than a sports psychologist, just that we'd have a very good relationship and we could talk about anything, and we're very similar in some ways in how we wanted things done, and we kind of the same goals and ambitions. So I probably used her a lot more than as my sports psychologist. Again, it's funny that when you look back, she'd be the one I'd always look for advice, or if I needed something, I knew I could rely on her. So yeah, I probably didn't ever like anytime a sports psychologist came in, I'd take on board what they'd say. But I think over the years I've kind of developed my own mental toughness and my own kind of ways of dealing with things, and that's right from being a 13, 14, 15-year-old. I kind of just had to learn when I was younger, because they weren't there, how to deal with certain pressure situations or things that are going on in your life, that I didn't feel that I ever fully needed to use one, but I've seen the benefits for other people when they used one. But I think it's because I was maybe more mature later in my career, when sports psychology probably became a big thing. That's probably the only reason I didn't use them fully, maybe.
Yeah. How do you think the GA's attitude towards sports psychology is? Do you think that they maybe haven't embraced it as much as other sports? And I understand they're an amateur association still, but do you think that in recent years they've done better, or do you think there's still room for improvement on that side of the game?
Yeah, no, I do. I think there's still room for improvement. I think it's, again, it's up to the individual manager of the football team. If they want to use one and they see benefit in them, then they'll use them. But there's other managers, then if they don't see benefit in them, they won't use them. I think a sports psychologist is, in GEA, especially ladies football, it's probably, you have a budget, and it's probably a long way down the list of how important it is in that budget. So, other things like obviously medical staff, physios, and then strength conditioning have become very big in the GAA. I think sports psychologist has been pushed down, but then again, it's very individual based. You could have a manager that thinks it's a huge thing. I think you look at teams that have been successful in the men's space in hurling and football. The Dublin men and Tipperary hurlers have used that. Caroline Hurd from Sligo as their sports psychologist, and the benefits when you're reading articles or listening to interviews of the guys there, that she's, how good that she's been for them. So I think it can be a thing that becomes, okay, well, Dublin footballers have been using her and they're successful. This has to be the reason they're successful. So I think in that space, it can kind of have ups and downs where, okay, sports psychology is, quite popular at the moment. We'll use it, and then it'll be something else. So we always kind of look to how teams are winning. I know from a point of view, we used to look at Cork Ladies because they were the most successful women's team. So what are they using? Okay, they're using this. They have a very good strength and conditioning coach. They have a very good sports psychologist. Okay, this is what we need. So I think that's how managers base it off, rather than basing it off actual, fact. And this is, rather than their own dealings with sports psychologists, they're looking at other teams and how they're successful. Okay, well, the Dublin men done this, so we must try and follow this, rather than knowing, this is what the team needs.
Yeah. I just want to ask you about your own mental preparation for a game. So, like, in the hour or two leading up to a game, what's your mental process that you go through? Like, do you have a routine you go through? And what I mean by that is, are you the type of player that pumps yourself up? Do you go completely killer calm, or what would be your mental routine before each game?
Yeah, I'd be very much, no, I don't pump myself up. I'm the complete opposite. I'm very need to be very, very calm and quiet. I need to be sitting beside people that are like me. I can't be too close to people that are, what I'd call hyper, or getting themselves worked up and pumped up. And that's if we're traveling to a match on a bus, I have to be beside people that are, don't talk to you too much. I just like to listen to music, or just, have basic chats, but I don't like to be talking about the game. And I don't like to be beside someone that'll be very talkative. Same in the dressing room. I have to sit beside the same people that are quite calm. And I have to be quite far away from the girls that are maybe a little bit more upbeat and need to pump themselves up. So need to be relaxed. And not that I need to get in the zone. I just need to be, I don't like to waste too much energy until closer to the match. So I like have certain routines that I'd have to sit beside certain people. Obviously the longer I've been, playing football, you know who the people are. So it's just, I try the day before a match, I try not to think or talk at all about football. Just, the morning of the match, I'm not a very good eater. I'd have to have done most of my eating the day before. I'll have a small breakfast and, that's enough for me. It's just to keep myself very calm and not get worked up in any way. And I need to be very much in control. I need to know the opposition. I need to know what's happening. I can't just go out. I need to be very prepared, if that's probably the right word. Very prepared from the point of view. I need to know that I'm physically ready for the match, that my training has been good for the last number of weeks. But also I need to be prepared from the point of view of who we're going out and play, know everything about the opposition, that type of thing. So I need to be quite prepared, both physically and mentally. I'm very relaxed and, just calm and kind of not be by myself, but not fully by myself, but just have people that are very similar mindset sitting beside me or nearby me.
Yeah. Would that stay the same no matter the size of the game? So like you've said there, you like to be relaxed. I mean, if you're playing, say, the first round of a club championship, but then also like an All-Ireland final, is it the same process each time? Like, are you able to stay calm even on those absolute monster games that you played?
Yeah, I keep it very similar, no matter if it's a league game for Carnacon or if it was an All-Ireland final for Carnacon or Mayo. It'd be very much similar. I kind of have the very much similar routine. Yeah, obviously the level of nerves will probably work themselves up a little bit higher if it's an All-Ireland final day. I probably, for like an All-Ireland final day, need to be even more prepared for maybe first round of club championship. Okay, if I didn't know this, I might be okay. But it'd be very, very much similar. I'd probably get myself a little bit worked up more preparation-wise coming closer to bigger matches. Where if something went wrong on, first round of club championship, I'd probably be able to deal with it better. If it was All-Ireland final day, I'd probably get a little bit more worked up. But I think over time you just develop the routine that you want, and it's quite important for me that I keep the same routine.
Yeah. Speaking of your routine now, I just want to ask you about one game in particular. You'll probably know where I'm going with this after a minute as well. It's the 2017 All-Ireland final. So you were playing Dublin. Now, in the week leading up to that game, the Dublin manager had said a couple of things about you in the press. I think probably just to ruffle your feathers or to get under your skin or whatever. Now, you're on the bus on the way to the game, and the girls obviously have their earphones in, they're listening to her music. You have your earphones in as well, but you're listening to what he has said about you. So two things. First of all, just for anyone listening that doesn't know, what exactly had he said about you? And second of all, how did you settle on that as being the way to approach that game?
Yeah, so first of all, I was just Mick Bowen, the Dublin manager. Basically, he came out that week of the match basically saying, number one, that we played Cork 3 weeks earlier in the All-Ireland semi-final, and basically that we were time wasting, that we went down injured. And then he specifically honed in on me, basically saying that I'm well able to work the referee and to win my frees, and basically called me that some of my frees were a bit on borderline of diving and stuff. So it's just certain things I'd hone in on for extra motivation, or just I just look at little different things that might help me in some way. Not that you need to rile yourself up for any of the big matches, but I just decided going in on match day that I'd heard it during the week, and it had been sent to me that I'd listen to it. Whether it was the right or wrong thing to do, you'll never know. But it's just probably an extra little bit of motivation for myself going into the match, to try and get yourself pumped up a little bit more for the game. But I think it was just because someone had sent it to me, and this was the thing that I said I'd have a listen into it. And as I said, looking back, I probably haven't looked back too much at that final, but you don't know if it's the right or wrong thing to do, but you're always trying to look for a little bit that extra percent or two that might get you over the line.
100%, yeah. Did you make up the friends afterwards, did you?
Of course we did. I think he came looking for me after the match. You don't hold anything against players and managers like that. We're all going out to win. And whatever it said or done, it's all forgotten about once the whistle is blown and the match is over.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, how would you reflect on your whole Mayo career? Because obviously it's a legendary career. Now, I asked Matty Ford this a couple of weeks ago as well, and he said he is able to look back with pride on everything that he's achieved, but also being a top athlete like he is and like you are, he says he still does look back sometimes with a lot of what ifs. And I do think a lot of top athletes sometimes look back, strangely enough, on the things maybe the finals that they think got away more so than the ones that they actually won. So would you be similar to Matty? Would you look back with a lot of what ifs as well, or can you look back with just complete pride on the unbelievable things you have achieved?
No, I think I'd be very much of Matty's thinking. I think as a sports person, you look back at you remember more of the finals that you lost and the things that got away from you and performances that were probably weren't were below par, and that if you had performed on that day that you could have got over the line, whether it was a semi-final to make a final or a final to win a final, whatever it was. Certainly you look back over it and you look at probably the disappointments and the things that the more things that you could have achieved. But on the other hand, I'm kind of still in the mindset that I'm still playing football. While I'm not playing for Mayo, I'm still playing club. Obviously still playing in Australia, so I'm very much still looking to the next game of club football or the next year for AFL. So I'm very much still in the mindset of an athlete that's trying to achieve more and trying to win more, or try to get better performances out of myself. So I think when I'm fully finished sport, whether it's AFL or if it's Gaelic football, I think when I fully hang up the boots that maybe you look back and reflect on your whole career as a collective. But I'm sure like anything else, there'll be plenty of what ifs, but there'll be certainly no regrets. I don't think. There'll be things that you wish that you had better performances on any given day, but I suppose when you're playing for as long as I am, you have to look back on that. I've been very lucky. It's been a very accomplished career. I've had injuries, all right, but I've been lucky that injuries haven't kept me out for that long. And I was lucky that a lot of people. I always from reading different things, you look at people that had to give up sport very young because of injuries or illness or whatever else, or maybe didn't get the opportunity. And I've been very lucky. I've had opportunity with both club and with Mayo and obviously now in Australia. So. I'm sure when I'm finished, I'll look back at it very fondly. But I'm certainly agree with Matty. I could tell you all the Club All Ireland we've lost or the All Ireland finals we've lost with Mayo more so than I can tell you about the ones that we've won.
Yeah. So you were talking there about the AFL as well. So I just want to ask you, when you went to Australia, even mentally, how stressful was that? Because obviously you're moving continents, but not only that, you're actually going to play a whole new game. And I know the skills are very, very transferable. It was still a new sport. Was that a very stressful time for you, or did you just embrace that challenge?
No, it was quite stressful, and I think there was a lot of things going on at the time. So I went out to Australia first week of December in 2017, and at that time of Australia happening, that was all announced, and we were still in club championship with Carnacon. So we got to the Club All Ireland final on this Sunday. And the build up to that was very, very strange comparing to any other Club All Ireland, because it happened to be all about me and me going to Australia. I was captain of the club that year as well. So the lead into the All Ireland final, I felt extra pressure than I normally would, as in that I can't let these girls down. I'm leaving, I'm going, and it ended up being rather about Carnacon and how successful they've been, and we're going for their 6th All Ireland. It ended up being about Cora and would it be the fairy tale ending and going to Australia. So I felt huge pressure going into that match, and then that match was over. Thankfully we won it, and we won it on a Sunday evening, and I flew to Australia on a Tuesday. So normally when you win a Club All Ireland, it should be huge celebrations, but there was this kind of level of God, I'm going, because I hadn't given myself time to think about it. I was only focused on Carnacon, and then, while you should be in the midst of celebrations and captaining your club to their 6th All-Ireland title, it was kind of a little bit of, oh God, I'm going. And I suppose getting to Dublin Airport on that Tuesday and sitting on a plane with your thoughts for the next, 30 plus hours going to Sydney. Yeah, it was certainly a stressful situation. That whole kind of for the All Ireland getting out there, and then obviously going to a new club, being the newbie. I haven't been the newbie in any sport in a long time, because I've been playing with Mayo for so long, and I've been playing with Carnacon. So, going into a new sport, not knowing anyone. I found the first couple of weeks were very difficult, and I also went out carrying an injury after the All Ireland, so that made me feel even a little bit more isolated. So, and I was coming up to Christmas, and I wasn't home for Christmas. There was all of that. So I think it was after Christmas, kind of early January, took me to settle in. It certainly, never mind even learning and picking up the game, which was another whole new stressful level. The whole moving and getting, getting to know people. I'm very comfortable in my own surroundings and my own friends, but I'd be quite a shy type person away from that. So having to come out of my shell and getting to know people, I found that extremely difficult. But again, that passed after probably maybe 6 weeks out there, and I felt at home. But that period from the week before the All Ireland to probably early January, it was quite stressful. But again, these are things that you have to go through, and they probably make you, a mentally stronger person because of them.
Definitely, yeah. And you also suffered a really bad injury. So I think you break your leg in 4 different places. Because I remember reading that at the time, and obviously, like, you're probably coming towards the latter ends of your career. So I remember thinking, oh, that's a dreadful one to get. So I didn't know if you'd come back. Obviously, you have come back. So when you got that injury, was it a case of is your mindset just like when we spoke about at the beginning, when you're just so focused on winning? Was that just another challenge that you were definitely going to overcome?
Yeah, I suppose. So obviously I got the injury. It's about 15 months ago now. So May 2019 was when I got the injury. Yeah, so I was playing a club AFL game in Australia. I decided to stay on for a couple of months after the season just to get a few more extra games in under my belt. And I broke my leg in 3 places and I broke my ankle. So I had 4 breaks. So obviously that was on a Saturday it happened, and I had to have emergency surgery on the Saturday evening, and then I had an operation on my leg on the Monday. So I suppose between that Saturday and Monday, that 48 hours of it happening, and probably when I come out of the hospital on the Tuesday, there were probably there was obviously a lot of the times you're wondering what's for me. As a sports person, when it happened, I remember going into waiting for the ambulance, and the ambulance coming and asking the ambulanceman, straight away, what does that mean? How long will I be out? When can I play again? To obviously asking the surgeon that question on Sunday when I seen him, to obviously when I got out to see my physio, that's your mindset straight away, is how long will it take? When can I get back to looking at things on the internet, to seeing, okay, people that have broken their leg badly, how long it's taken them. I probably had a lot of guilt as well, because obviously I was meant to come home and play club football with Carnacon, and I felt I was letting them down there, broke my leg, so I needed to get back as soon as I can to play with them. But I suppose to answer your question, mindset wise, it was probably just, it was another challenge. I looked at it and, okay, this is another challenge. I probably was waiting for something. I always remember the Thursday after it happened. So what it happened probably 5 days previous, I had to go out to the club to see the club doctor, just to have a look at my stitches. And there was just one guy out at the club that I met. I won't name who he is, but he was quite high up in the Giants at the time, and would have just passed a comment basically to me that you'd be lucky to get back if you probably won't play football again. And it's just a small little comment from anyone. It could have been anyone that said that to me. It was like, I'll prove him wrong. And that was my not my sole motivation, but he was probably one of my motivating factors for the next number of months. And I suppose any time I struggled or was having a bad day, I'd certainly think about him. Or any time I needed to say to myself, I'll do an extra 20 minutes on the bike, it was probably because of comments like that. I'm very much I'm very stubborn in nature, so I think that stubbornness of proving people wrong, because I knew behind it all, while I had a lot of people helping me, they were the closest people I had. I knew they never doubted me, but I knew there was a lot of people, whether it was in Australia or at home in Ireland, that would, and it's natural that they doubt you because of your age and because of the seriousness of the injury. I'm very much, I'll prove them wrong, and I'll be back in record time. So thankfully, because of the great support, obviously, and help that I got in Australia, I was lucky that I got back in pretty good time.
Yeah, is it mad, isn't it? These top sports people, like all the kind of support and adulation they get, and it can just take one comment from someone, and they're all so stubborn.
Yeah, I just think it's the way it's when you're told that you can't or you won't.
Yeah.
I don't think that probably comes into your vocabulary too much. And I suppose it was like learning how to play AFL and going out there and going from probably being one of the top footballers in Ireland to going out to being an absolute nobody in AFL. That was another challenge, and I found this just as another challenge. Okay, it's a serious injury. Most people at my age would just say, do you know what, it's easier to give up. But I think throughout my career I've always been looking for challenges, and even I took up other sports in my mid-20s, whether it was rugby or soccer, and the reason I took them up is because sometimes I just wanted to challenge, to see could I make it at rugby, to see could I make it at soccer. So I think that's just innately in you, that you like to have a challenge presented in front of you. And the injury was a challenge presented in front of me, and I knew once I had the help and support around me that I probably wasn't going to fail because I had the right people in my corner.
Yeah. And where will the Australian journey end? You're going back again, aren't you?
Yeah. So I go back out sometime in November again. We'll see. I only take it probably week by week at this stage, because I suppose because of the leg break and the amount of work I suppose I put into getting back. I was training 6 times a week for 4 or 5 hours a day in rehab, doing it for 6 to 8 months. I probably came back stronger and fitter than I ever have because of it. So, because I put so much time in, and, I feel in quite good shape, that I decided to go back this year. So, we'll see how this year's go. We take it year by year, as I said, even week by week. It's a great challenge, and I love it out there. It's my 4th year, so I feel very settled out there at this stage now.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Look, I finish up with 2 questions that I ask everybody, so it's your turn now. So the first one is, if you could pick one athlete in the history of sport, it can be from any sport, that you admire most from a mentality point of view, who would you pick and why?
Yeah, it's a very difficult one. I suppose I'd have to, growing up, I was a huge Roy Keane fan, so it'd be probably Roy Keane from the point of view. He was certainly a person, I just loved his kind of no bullshit attitude. Growing up, I think he was a guy that maybe wasn't always the most, I don't know, skillful is the right word, but the most talented. Certainly not skillful, probably the most talented, but was a guy that was very, very driven and wanted to get to the top. And I'm very much that, use the saying a lot, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. So I think no matter what, if you're driven and you work hard and you put in as much effort as you can reach the top, and you can achieve anything that you want. So I suppose from a point of view, I just loved the way he went about himself, that he was a guy from inner city Cork that just worked really, really hard, and went and ended up captaining one of the biggest clubs in the world at the time, and it was all through hard work and his drive, just wanted to succeed and be better all the time. So I think it's probably him, purely from probably being, I'd say, a 12-year-old up to my mid-20s, that I certainly would have looked up to him.
Yeah, that's a good answer, yeah. And the last one then is, if you were to go back and talk to a younger version of yourself, so let's just say that 13-year-old who's playing senior football for the first time. So if you were to give a younger version of you a piece of advice, again, from a mentality point of view, maybe something you know now that maybe you didn't know then, what advice would you give that younger version of yourself?
Yeah, probably the biggest piece of advice that I give that my younger version of myself as a 13-year-old is that there's certain people in your life that will give you very good advice, and it's to figure out who them people are, and to listen to the advice that they give you. Because growing up, I was very lucky that I've had very good coaches and people that support me along the way. And it's only because of their words and advice that they gave me along the way that I, have achieved what I've achieved. And I think it's very important that you kind of listen to that advice from them people, because I think nowadays growing up that, young people, probably, don't always have the right people there to give them the advice. But certainly, I was given advice that, again, as I said to you, the hard work will beat anything. Yeah, you're super talented, but you can have all the talent in the world, but it takes a lot of hard work. And the harder that you work, the more rewards that you'll gain. And yeah, that's certainly, from my point of view, that's always been my motto from, probably since I was 12 or 13. You can achieve anything if you work hard. And yeah, and I think it was probably the best piece of advice that I was given.
That's brilliant. Well, Cora, you've been a legend with your time. Thanks very much. Your Wi-Fi held up as well, so happy days there. So best of luck when you go back to Australia now in November, and we'll all keep an eye out for you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, Cora. Thank you.
No bother at all.
There we go. Thanks a million to Cora Staunton this week for coming on to talk all about her career. She is really regarded as the greatest ladies Gaelic footballer of all time, and she has been at that top level for over 2 decades. So to have somebody on at that level to talk all about how she approaches different challenges and different moments of her career from a mental point of view was absolutely brilliant. So thanks a million, Cora, and best of luck now when you go back to Australia in November. Same as every week, look, if you did enjoy it and if you did find it interesting, just give it a like, give it a share, maybe pass it on to somebody that you think might find it interesting as well. And we're also on Spotify now as well. I've been asked a few times over the last couple of weeks when we're going on Spotify, because I know that's how most people take in their podcasts. So the answer is now. We're up on it now, so you'll be able to find the first 5 episodes on that, and you'll be able to find it every week from now on Spotify as well. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone. And if you have been enjoying the episodes so far, next week is one you're not going to want to miss, because next week I spoke to probably the most mentally strong person I think I've ever spoke to in my whole life. His story is unbelievable. So like I said, if you have been enjoying him so far, you won't want to miss next week's episode. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, the green and red Mayo, I can see it still. It's soft and craggy boglands, it's tall majestic hills, where the ocean kisses Ireland, the waves caress its shore. Oh, the feeling it came over.